It's August the 10th, 2022, and I'm here with Peter Scaramuzzo. Peter, tell us a little bit about your family origins in Italy.
Well, my father was born in Pontelatone, Naples, Italy. That's the southern part of Italy. And my mother was born in Taranto, which is the eastern part of Italy, right at the heel.
In the Puglia region, yeah, okay. In Puglia.
In Puglia, yes. And her dialect was almost the same as the Neapolitan, so there was no problem in understanding. And all of our children, we grew up speaking Italian first.
Yeah. About when did your father and mother migrate?
They were married very young. I think my father was 21 years old, and my mother was 15 years old.
15?
15.
Uh-huh. And they were in Chicago at the time?
They were in Chicago at the time. They met in the Holy Guardian Angel Church, Forker and Halsted Street. And
what year would they...
For a while.
Do you know what year they married?
No, I really don't. My oldest sister was 12 years older than I am.
So it would be...
And I was born in 1922.
Okay, so 1908 at the earliest, at the earliest, whatever. So they're in the 1900s. And what was your father's occupation?
My father was a gunsmith.
Did he learn that in Italy?
He learned that trade in Italy. However, his father didn't want him to be a gunsmith. He wanted him to be a priest. Because on their land in Italy, they had a priest, a relative, an uncle. And he wanted to teach my father to be a priest. He wanted him to go to a school and become a priest. And of course, my father didn't want to do that. And the same thing happened to his cousin, Saverio. So as punishment, my father and Saverio were sent to the United States. They were supposed to stay 3 months, and they stayed forever.
If we wanted to look up your father on the Ellis Island website, what name and what year about would we be looking for?
Well, his name was Luigi Scaramuzzo, and I would say that he came here in 1905, I think.
So in the 1900s?
Yes.
And from what town exactly, specifically, if so we could...
Exactly from Pontelatone.
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 Okay. Very good. We can look him up.
Yeah, that's the Provincia di Caserta, or like Naples.
Very good. So he came as a gunsmith. Did he immediately work as a gunsmith, you think, or?
Well, he went with his cousin Saverio first. Their first stop was Youngstown, Ohio.
Oh.
They were promised that they could get a job there in the Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company. So my father didn't like that. He saw the smoke and all that. However, Saverio, his cousin, he liked it, and he stayed there, and he became the general manager of that company.
Wow.
But my father continued on to Chicago, where he had some more paisani, and they wanted to get him a job at the Bell Telephone Company, which was at the Forker and Halsted Street. Bell Telephone Company.
Yeah.
So he went there, and he said he didn't think that he wanted to work in the Bell Telephone Company. And they said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "I'm a gunsmith." And the guy said, "Well, I have a gun that's not working," and he gave it to him for repairs, and that's how he got into business. He started getting people bringing guns to him to repair, and he became, what I understand, was the most famous gunsmith in the world, and the best. He loved it. He taught it to all of his sons. He taught it to me. I sat right next to him, and we had a wonderful business at Harrison and Halsted Street, right on the corner.
Oh,
We
that was,
originally were at 604 Blue Island Avenue, but across the street is Halsted Street. You know, it comes to
yeah.
the corner there, and we were there for many, many, many years.
Oh, tell us the story of how he came to get the shop.
Well, he went into the Friends at the Bellinopoli restaurant, which was at Forker and Halsted Street, across from the Banco di Napoli. And they told him to rent a little store that was on the other corner of Forker and Halsted Street, and that he could get a job in the Bell Telephone Company. But he went there and he didn't like that, and they said someone there asked him, "Well, why don't you like it?" He said, "But I'm a gunsmith." He said, "Well, I have a gun that's broke. Can you fix it?" And that's how he began to get people bringing in guns that weren't working. And
This was what year?
I would say 1910, 1909, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Do you remember how much the rent was there in the middle of?
$7 a month rent. He was told by the people in the Bellinopoli restaurant he could rent that store on the opposite corner for $7 a month, and he could live there. And that's exactly what he did. He rented the store for the $7 and opened up his business, and he lived there.
So how long did he live there approximately?
I think 4 years, till he was about 20 years old when he met my mother at the Guardian Angel Church, and they got married. I think he was 20, and she was 14 or 15, young.
Okay, yeah, we could. Do you have any records of their marriage or of baptisms or anything like that in the family?
I have somewhere the actual marriage certificate.
Oh, that would be good to have
Yeah,
and to record.
I may be able to find it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, if you can, let me know. And so, a little bit about you and your early families. Your parents. Your father's name was Luigi.
Luigi.
And your mother's name was?
Immacolata Concetta Fedele, Fedele.
Oh, that's a very Catholic name.
Yeah. My grandmother had a miscarriage, and she prayed to the Blessed Mother that if she let her have another baby, she would call her Immacolata. So that happened, and she named my mother Concetta Immacolata.
And do you have any idea the decade that she was born in? Was she born in the 1890s or?
Yeah, she was born, I think 1895. My dad was born in 1889.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he was at least 6 years older than she was. Okay, well, we can probably find them in the Ellis Island records, and that would have more accurate information or specific information. So they got married in about 1909 or something.
Yes, I think 1910, maybe.
Okay, and then how many children did they have, and who were they?
Seven
They
children.
had 7 children.
7 children.
And what were their names, and who were the?
Four
What?
girls, Vicenza, Maria, Josefina, and Edith.
Okay, those 4 were they the first ones to be born? There were 4 girls first, and then the boys came.
No. The Vicenza was born first, and then Maria, and then Luigi,
Okay, Luigi
and
Junior.
then Josephine. Then Joseph, and then me, 1922.
So you're the youngest
I'm the youngest of the 7.
in 1922.
Yeah,
And this.
October 1st, 1922.
Okay, so you're heading toward your 100th birthday in a short time.
Con la grazia di Dio.
Okay, very good. And so they had a big family. Was it 7 children, you said?
7 children.
7 children. They were living across the street from Hull House, sort of, or
No, our business was across the street from
Okay.
Hull House. We lived at 1104 South Sangamon Street with my grandmother. But then when I was born, my father moved to 5247 South Sawyer Avenue to get his family away from the Taylor Street. And I grew up in that house until I was married. I lived in that house until I got married.
What memories do you have of living on Taylor Street, where you were a young boy at the time? What was it like?
Oh, it was absolutely wonderful. It was like being in Italy, and everyone was so nice and so understanding. And I loved my grandmother so much, and she was a brilliant woman. She could read and write and speak. All the ladies in the street would bring her letters to read and everything like that. She was very religious, and I loved being with her, and I would stay with her, all through the week and go to the Italian school at the Holy Guardian Angel, and then I'd go home on Friday to the south side where I lived, which was basically an Irish neighborhood at that time. So I didn't have too many friends there until my father got my mother's sister's family to move there, the Cheloni family. And my cousin, one of my cousins, Luciano Cheloni, he and I became closer than brothers, and we were together forever until the war broke out.
When did you move to the South Side?
My family moved to the south side when I was a baby, 1922. He bought a new home at 5247 South Sawyer Avenue, brand new construction. And however, I was born at 1104 South Sangamon, but I was a babe in arms when I moved to Sawyer Avenue.
So, and then your grandmother took care of you a lot of the time?
Yeah.
So that was in the Taylor Street neighborhood.
Yeah.
And what do you remember about Halsted Street, the businesses, the institutions around there?
Well, I remember Taylor and Halsted Street was beautiful at that time. At least I thought so. And the whole area there was wonderful for me as a kid. I thought I was in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my grandmother there, and I could walk to my dad's store from there. And
so, how old were you when your dad was training you to be a gunsmith?
Oh, I started training with him at a very, very young age, maybe 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I continued going there. Even when I went to high school in Lindblom High School, I would get on the streetcar after school and go all the way to Harrison and Halstead, where his business was, and I'd sit there and watch him doing his work and everything. He was a brilliant man, brilliant man, and really.
Well, did he ever get into the newspaper? Some stories about his shop or his skills and all?
Yeah, he had a lot of trouble with the city, and in 1932, the police raided his store, and they said that he was one of Al Capone's men, and which was not true, but they raided the store and they wanted to blow open his safe, and he said, "No, I won't let you blow open my safe. I'll open it for you if you let my wife come here and see that everything is in the safe, and that you." He thought maybe the police would take his money and all.
Uh-huh.
And at that time there was no law against deleting the numbers on guns. And he wasn't even aware of it, and they arrested him because they thought that he had eliminated these numbers on these guns, and it was a big case that they made about it. There's even a book about it. I think I have it somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
But he was exonerated as God wanted, and he continued on in the same store, in the same business. He became the most famous gunsmith in the world, and the best. He was a wonderful man. I remember him now. I used to stand next to him while he was shaving and dressing, and I would say, "Papa, how come you dress up every day?" And he said, "I'm a businessman. I want to look like a businessman." And that stuck in my mind all the time. And I said, I have to be like my dad. I have to be like clean and dressed all the time and learn English better than the Americans.
So he wanted you to learn English.
Oh, yes, yeah, he told me.
But you spoke Italian. Was that first? Did you?
Yes.
That was your first language?
I lived directly across the street from the school at 5247 South Sawyer. The Sawyer Avenue School is still there today, and that house is still there today. But they wouldn't accept me because I couldn't speak English. But then when I learned English in the Holy Guardian Angel, after they would teach us in Italian, but they had courses in English, and I learned English, and I think about the second grade I got into Sawyer Avenue School, and I graduated from that school. I was a bellboy there for 2 years. I ran the bell, running around the street with a bell in my hand, where the classes were recess and all that, 1 square block. And then eventually, when I graduated, they put in an electric sim where you just, electric system, you just press a button and it rings.
Oh, so you were the bell ringer.
Yeah.
You must have been a teacher's pet to get that position.
Yeah, they even gave me a card, 2 years bellboy.
Very good. Now, tell me about Holy Guardian Angel. What years were you associated with it?
That
Do you
was
remember?
like Paradise, the Holy Guardian Angel. That was, 1930 maybe, 1920.
You'd have been 8 years old or 7 years old.
Yeah.
You went there to get
I
communion?
remember the Padre Secchia. I still got my diploma from there, too.
Oh, okay, that'd be good to photograph.
Yeah.
So, you went to religious school there, or did you go to real school there?
Both. It was a Catholic school, a wonderful school, and all. They taught in English and Italian. Nuns, wonderful. They were all wonderful. They were all Italian, and they were lovable. They were wonderful. You know, you felt like you felt like you were going from one home to another home when you go to school.
What order of priests were at our Holy Guardian Angel?
I honestly can't answer that because I don't know. But I don't, whatever group they belonged to, they were all wonderful. I continued on there for my communion and confirmation, and
And what were the religious celebrations like, and what were the festivals like?
that area, that Taylor Street area, was very Catholic, very much devoted to the church, the Holy Guardian Angel, and they had these feasts every summer, and sometimes they'd have it on Sangamon Street, which was our street, my grandmother's street, and people would put up little bars, you know, and sell sausage sandwiches, and another guy is selling watermelon, and the whole street from Taylor Street to Roosevelt Road was all like a party every year.
Okay, and do you remember Messaggero Celeste?
Cielo Celeste?
Celeste.
No.
Oh, okay. If you don't remember, that's okay. And the church, do you remember the role it played in the community? It was fairly near to Hull House, wasn't it? Was there? Did they do some of the same things that Hull House did, or did they share, or were they rivals?
Well, the Holy Guardian Angel was wonderful. They had some sports that you could do, you know, baseball and stuff like that. But the Hull House was a different ball game completely. They had everything there: boxing, penny lunch. You could go
Penny lunch?
penny lunch for a penny. Every day you could go to there, and they had They taught you boxing and dancing, and anything you wanted. It was Hull House was wonderful.
Did you yourself participate?
Absolutely. Oh,
So,
yeah.
were you in any of the clubs, or what?
We would go. My cousin and I. We would go in there, and for a penny, we'd have lunch.
What kind of lunch? Can you remember what you ate?
Lunch. I remember this. First time I'd seen mashed potatoes with gravy, and like something similar to a hamburger,
Uh-huh.
and they would change the menu periodically, but that was the staple there all the time, the mashed potatoes and this piece of what appeared to me like a hamburger would be today.
Did you know anything about Jane Addams, who was the leader of Hull House?
Yes.
Did you remember ever seeing her, or?
I know that I heard that she was there, but I never saw her there. But I saw many celebrities there. Some were considered good people, and some were not considered very good, but they were there. I don't know. As I mentioned before, Al Capone was a big.
Was Al Capone was at Hull House?
He was a patron. He used to stand in front of the Hull House.
And what was he doing?
He would hand out money, silver dollars to kids and things like that. Yeah. And our store was directly across the street.
So you remember that specifically? You were there. You're an eyewitness?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was there as a kid, and my uncle Joe, he was a boxing teacher in the Hull House, teaching. He was a young man, and he was teaching kids how to box,
Oh,
so that the Italian kids, there was the Mexicans were starting to move in the Taylor Street area,
mm-hmm.
and they weren't very they weren't welcomed very much. So everybody wanted to learn how to fight.
Oh, so they could fight the other kids. Yeah. Did Al Capone ever come into your father's store?
I don't know too much about that.
Hmm. Okay, he was across the street though, giving out dollar coins.
Yeah, there was a big unfair and a big unfair campaign against my father. They tried to portray him as a friend of Al Capone's and a gangster, and he was nothing like that. He was a fine, intelligent, brilliant man, kind and generous,
Mm-hmm.
and I patterned my life after him.
Uh-huh.
I loved him so much.
So, was religion really important in your family when you were growing up?
Religion,
The Catholic religion, and
absolutely.
they go to mass frequently.
My mother demanded that we go to mass every Sunday, and I've been going to mass every day since I was about just before I got married. So I got married at 23 years old. So I love the church, and I thought my son Louis was going to become a priest
Oh,
because he went to the seminary 2 years in a row.
oh, what seminary?
And I don't know, somewhere way north. I forgot the name.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I didn't want to
Mundelein?
encourage him or discourage him. I said, you do what you feel is right. I thought he was going to become a priest.
Uh-huh.
And he's still a very religious boy. And thank God all my family participate in the church. They go to church. My daughters, all my children. I like that.
Okay. So your father had an education as a skilled gunsmith.
That education came directly from an uncle that lived on the same property.
Yeah, and so he was like they do in Italy, an apprentice from the time he was 9 or 10 years old, and
Yeah.
then he learned it. Then, what kind of education did you and your siblings receive?
Well, I personally went to grammar, high school, and 2 years of college. And my brother Lou, he did the same thing. And my sisters, I don't think, they all graduated high school. Everybody graduated high school, but I think I think my brother Lou and I were the only ones that had anything to do with a college, any college education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What college did you attend?
Wilson Jr.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
in the system. In the high school?
I think that was the name of it. I don't remember now.
I remember Wilson Junior High, but what was the high school name? Was it Wilson too?
I think I went there and I didn't like it. First of all, it was too far from. I don't know. There's something about that I still can't remember.
Okay, well, if you have any memories of your high school years and what you were.
My high school years were wonderful. I went to Lindblom High School, and I graduated from there in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I graduated from Sawyer Avenue School in 1936, 1940 over there. That school was like 62nd and one of those streets near Damon, right in that area.
Okay, not too far west. So, uh, and what was were you involved in social activities when you were in high school, and
Oh,
clubs and sports and things?
oh yeah, I was in a lot of different things. I've got a book somewhere that from Lindblom High School. I was on a boxing team and things like that, and I didn't like that area that the school was in, but I would walk there from 52nd and Sawyer
Mm-hmm.
to 62nd and I think that's one street after Damon.
Yeah, I don't know which was it. Okay, so that's good. And you enjoyed high school and you did well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be in high school, and I liked it. I didn't like the area or the store there that they had there where you could buy a hamburger or something. I didn't like that, and I stopped going there after one or two times, and I never went there anymore. But I made a lot of wonderful friends there, and I liked all the teachers, especially a teacher named Gable. So I liked him because when he started reading off the class members' names, he said, Peter Scaramuzzo. And I said, oh. So after the school session was over, I asked him if he was Italian. He said I'm half Italian. My father was Italian. And
So you judged your teachers by whether they could pronounce your name correctly.
yeah, they all had trouble saying my name, and that kind of hurts, you know.
Yeah.
Well, there were two teachers that knew how to say the name. That was him and an Irish teacher with red hair. I don't know what she taught. Oh yeah, she was teaching Spanish,
Oh, okay.
and I spoke Spanish fluently because growing up around Taylor Street, you know, I knew all the girls and all the boys, and it was so similar to Italian that I learned it quickly. And my father could speak 4 languages, you know,
Really?
and so I learned Spanish right away. And in fact, I had a house in Mexico for a long time.
Oh.
I finally sold it after all the drug dealers started out there. But I had a beautiful home in Guadalajara, Mexico.
So it sounds like your father and his business were very prosperous, and that you didn't have financial setbacks as a family, and that you were well provided for.
No, I had everything I wanted. Luckily, my father was a successful man and very generous man. And he told me, I'll give you anything you want. I just don't want you to make any trouble for anybody. And you know, I want you to learn English better than the Americans. And he was always teaching. He was always teaching me something, you know, do this and do that. And I wanted to be just like him, and I hope that I achieved some part of that because I loved him so much, along with my mother, who was a beautiful Italian mama, typical Italian mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What happened to the business? Is it still going in one form or another?
The business continued on until about the 70s, and then my father was gone, and my brother moved the business to Tucson, Arizona.
Oh.
And he's gone too now. His son, Gary Scaramuzzo, is still in the gun business, but not as a gunsmith, as a gun dealer.
Uh-huh.
He goes to these shows, gun shows, and he buys and sells guns, you know. I think he knows a little bit about gun repair, but I don't think I would call him a gunsmith. But he's a nice kid. Half Irish, his mother's Irish. Yeah. But I never held that against him. Even though the Irish didn't like the Italians when I was a kid. It's a different ball game now, you know, everybody is different.
Okay.
But at that time,
So,
at my time,
so you would consider yourself to your family even in the 1930s to have been middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class.
I think probably upper middle class or more than. People respected my father. He always made a wonderful living. He always drove a new car. He had to have a new car every year until I got into the business, and then we would buy the car for him. But he would look in the Tribune and he'd say, "Oh, look, here's a picture of the new Lincoln."
Yeah.
Oh, that's a car. So I said, well that car's like maroon. Is that what you like? He said, yeah. So we'd go over to 26th and Michigan.
Uh-huh.
The
Oh,
Ford,
yeah.
Lincoln dealer.
Automobile Row, yeah.
And we tell him we want a car for my father, and he knew my father. And I said, he wants a maroon car this year. He would trade the car in and with 8,000 miles on it. But he had to have a new car every year.
Well, that's...
And he would wear a different suit every day.
Uh-huh.
He was what I called a Fiorino. You know, that's a term in Italian, a guy who likes to dress.
Uh-huh.
But he was always careful about himself, and he always told me, I'm a businessman and I want to look like a businessman. And he was well liked on Hall. In fact, they called him the mayor of Halsted Street.
They did?
Yeah.
Well, that's something. Let's see. So, how did you feel when you were growing up about being an Italian?
Well, I was always proud of being an Italian until I met the kids in the new neighborhood, in that South Sawyer Avenue neighborhood, where the mostly Irish kids lived there, and you know, I felt, gee, you know, I would rather not be Italian, maybe. But then when I walk in the house and I say, I'm going to tell my mother about this, and then I'd look at her and I'd say, look how beautiful she is, and I'm happy I'm Italian. And I was always proud to be Italian. And then especially when my cousin Luciano moved into my neighborhood, and we were together all the time, and we made a pact. We said, we'll never deny that we're Italian, and we'll promise God we won't swear, we won't use bad language like these Irish kids use. And we never did. I never heard him say a foul word, and I can honestly tell you that I never used bad language. And we always stayed close to God. We always went to church. I've been going to Mass every day since I was, I think, about 23, 24, just before I got
Every
married.
day? Every day without fail? What Mass did you go to? 7 o'clock in the morning or something?
Oh yeah, I went to Mass today. I went to the 8 o'clock Mass today over here. But when I was working in the office with my son Mark was in the automobile business, he's a dealer. And I would get up in the morning, you know, when I was feeling this, after this happened to me, I would get in my car, and I'd go to Mass, and then I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts, and then I'd go to the office.
Oh.
And I'd bring Mark and the girl a coffee and a muffin.
Oh, that's a great routine.
But I can't do that anymore.
Uh,
It's been 2 years now since I can't do that anymore.
mhm. Well, that's really something. I've never heard of anybody who went to church every day for 60, 70 years.
Well, it's a wonderful way to start the day, believe me. It's just something that you have to get accustomed to. You go to you go to church, you go to Dunkin' Donuts, and you go to the office. And I never miss doing